Ishtiaq from Burton. I'll request Mr. Ishtiaq please to come and put his question.
From Burton, right. Burton, right. Next, huh?
Burton.
This is what I said, Burton, and you corrected me, so I turned to Merton, and then you corrected me, and that's okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Professor.
Welcome.
In the world today, there's 52 Muslim countries, but none of them are ruling by Islam fully. Do you believe it's fard to establish an Islamic state in the sense of Khilafah, to implement Islamic rule properly?
Please sit down. I'm not interested in Islamic rule. I'm interested in the rule of the Quran and the will of God. The stately power is not a prerequisite to the rule of God and the rule of the Quran. Had it been, then Hadhrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam should have been granted the state authority before he was commissioned to be a prophet. 13 years of his life was spent in total helplessness, and not a glimpse of sword is seen during the lifetime of Muhammad ﷺ in Mecca or in the hands of his followers, but swords are being seen in the hands of his enemies. So why was he made a prophet with so much of so much injunctions regarding do's and do nots, while he had no authority to implement that teaching? But that teaching did not need any authority, because the Sahaba who followed him during the period of Mecca were the symbols of Islamic teaching, far greater than all who came afterwards. They are the people who are highlighted by the Holy Quran as the very special people who were purified by Hazrat Muhammad ﷺ. They were the very symbol of truth and purity and honesty. Under what state they were carved like this? Under what state power? None. But when the state power came to Islam, then what happened? Imagine those two dynasties of Abbasides and Umayyads, when they ruled the world in the name of Islam, but only as state monarchs. What happened to Islam? What happened to the peace of the world? What happened to the teachings of the Holy Quran? So, do you want me to beg of Allah to make me repeat all that horrors? Most certainly not. I have a different image of truth as it spreads, and that image is based invariably on the beginning of all religions. The beginning of all religions are the best period, and they are the periods in which invariably the sword is held by the enemies. The state power is possessed by the enemies and never by the prophets of Allah. And yet they bring about miracles in spiritual changes and moral changes and ideological changes and so on and so forth. So Islam is a religion of wisdom. Islam is a religion of truth. And wisdom and truth cannot be taught with the help of swords. If you try to implement Islam through coercion, what would be the purpose of that? What reward will those people get from Allah who are coerced by talwar, by sword, to start saying prayers 5 times a day? Do you not realize that Islam around 1400 years ago made it incumbent on every Muslim to say 5 times prayers 5 times a day at least, to pay zakat, to be truthful? Now they have not become that because of that teaching. So you require state power. Meaning, where Allah failed, we are going to succeed with the help of statecraft and power. And what sort of Muslims will you create under that state power? Will they prostrate to your authority or prostrate to the God, to the authority of God and Muhammad Rasulullah? The authority of God and Muhammad Rasulullah was available to them, was addressing them even before taking over by the mullahs of a state. They did not care of that authority. So they are bowing and prostrating to humans, not to God. Humans in power, under their threat. And what sort of people are produced under such threats? Shocking people. Don't you see what's happening in Afghanistan? Women are being treated as worse than slaves. And in a manner in which Hadhrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never treated any woman. He was the prophet of women in the sense that he rehabilitated their honor like no man on earth had ever done it. No one could raise his voice against his own wives. And this is what Hazrat Umar complained once to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What you have done to our women, they are talking back to us. And never in the streets of Medina a woman was insulted and beaten up because she was not wearing parda. Can you think of a single example? Did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam not know what Islam was? So when the sword comes in the hands of the mullah craft, then it destroys Islam in a manner that it is no longer recognizable. How could I dream of such a thing? I am a Khalifa without a sword, and yet people in 152 countries or perhaps more are following my instructions while I have no state authority even in the place where I live. And they follow the instructions so beautifully, so wonderfully. It's amazing for the world to see. I say do this and they do that. Even husbands, when they are cruel to their women, when I tell them do not repeat it, and they cease to repeat it, not because of sword, because of the fear of Allah only. That is only my instrument which I use. I remind them of fear of Allah and they feel their responsibility to reform. Again, there are children who do not respond to the instructions of their parents. All over the world it is happening. When they watch me on television saying something which their parents had also said and they did not agree, when they hear me, they look at the person, yes, now we are going to do this. This is Islam. It does not require any state authority. It requires the authority of absolute conviction, unshakable belief in God, the Holy Quran and the Holy Prophet of Islam. That is all the strength you need to implement Islam anywhere in the world, and this is exactly what Khilafat Ahmadiyya is doing it today and demonstrating it to the world. Thank you.
Hazur, next question is Mr. Nilson Tamazini from Brazil.
Yes, please.
I'll request him.
Most welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
You're from Brazil?
Yes, I'm from Brazil.
Good. Welcome.
Thank you. My question is, you mentioned some Bible verse to explain about what happened to Jesus after his death.
Yes.
And so, why don't you believe in the following verse that say that Jesus was ascended to heaven, as in Luke, and Acts shows that he was ascended to heaven?
Because the Christian scholars have unanimously proved this verse to belong